Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi wa kafa wa salamun ala ibadihi alladhina istafa. Amma ba'd. Welcome to episode 3 of our Al Hanif podcast covering the events of Karbala. Now, in this episode, we will cover the period of Imam Hussein's time in Makkah Sharif and the letters that are received by him by the people of Kufa, like we alluded to in the previous episode. Now, as usual, we want to cover some of the personalities and the characters that are involved in this portion of the story. And of course, the central figure and personality is Hazrat Imam Hussein. Another personality is Hazrat Muslim bin Aqil. And Hazrat Muslim bin Aqil, he is the first cousin of Hazrat Imam Hussein. Now, his father, of course, is Aqil. And Aqil was the brother of Hazrat Ali. They were both sons of Janab Abu Talib. So now Hazrat Muslim bin Aqil is his first cousin. And Muslim bin Aqil is the one whom Hazrat Imam Hussein decides to send to Kufa to assess the situation. Another person that appears in this episode is Nu'man ibn Bashir al-Ansari. Nu'man ibn Bashir al-Ansari was the son of the Ansari Sahabi Bashir ibn Sa'd of the Banu Khazraj and the current governor of Kufa at the time of the letters being sent out to Hazrat Imam Hussein. The other character that first appears here in our discussion is Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad. Now, who's Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad? Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad is the person who Yazid replaces Nu'man ibn Bashir with as governor of Kufa. Now, Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad was the son of someone named Ziyad. Ziyad was the child of a prostitute that Abu Sufyan, the father of Hazrat Amir Muawiyah, had a relationship with, allegedly. And Ziyad then was actually considered to be a bastard child. But what Hazrat Amir Muawiyah does during his khilafah is that he acknowledges Ziyad as his brother. So that gives Ziyad a lot of credibility. And so because of that, he's able to secure a high position in Muawiyah's government. And his son, Ubaidullah, also enjoys that same kind of stature. Now, to continue with our story, Hazrat Imam Hussein sets off for Mecca. But unlike Hazrat Abdullah bin Zubair, he stays on the main road. Hazrat Abdullah bin Zubair, when he had set off for Mecca, he took a side road to avoid pursuit. But Hazrat Imam Hussein doesn't do this. He takes the main road. And even a member of his household goes so far as to say, لو نكثت الطريق الأعظم كما فعل ابن الزبير لا يلحقك الطلب, which means if you had avoided the main road as Ibn Zubair did, you could avoid pursuit as well. To which Hazrat Imam Hussein replies, لا والله لا أفارقه حتى يقضي الله ما أحب إليه, which means, no, by Allah, I will not leave it. I will not leave the main road until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decides or decrees what He deems is best. And so this is giving us a preview of sorts into the way Hazrat Imam Hussein carries out his business. And remember, we discussed this before, that all of the prudent ways of action are discussed with him and they're communicated to him. But of course, he sets these things aside for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and for the benefit of his fellow man, as we will explore in the coming episodes, inshallah. So on the way to Mecca, they cross paths with someone named Abdullah bin Mutir, who is an ardent supporter of Hazrat Abdullah bin Zubair. And when they meet, Abdullah bin Mutir says, Ju'iltu fidaka ayna turid. This is how he greets Hazrat Imam Hussein. He says, may I be sacrificed for you. Where are you going? And Hazrat Imam Hussein replies, Amma al-an fa inni uridu Makkah, wa amma ba'daha fa inni astaghfirullah. He says, as for right now, I'm going to Mecca, and as for after that, I will seek the best thing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Basically, he's saying astakhiru, which means to do istikhara. I will seek the best course of action from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And again, this is giving us an insight into the way that Hazrat Imam Hussein operates. Now, in reply, Ibn Muti' says, خار الله لك وجعلنا فداك فإذا أنت أتيت مكة فإياك أن تقرب الكوفة فإنها بلدة مشؤومة بها قتل أبوك وخذل أخوك وأغتيل بطعنة كادت تأتي على نفسه إلزم الحرم فإنك سيد العرب لا يعدل بك والله أهل الحجاز أحدا ويتداعي إليك الناس من كل جانب لا تفارق الحرم فداك عمي وخالي فوالله لئن هلكت لنسترقن بعدك. He says, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you the best course of action, and may He make us your ransom. May He make us your sacrifice. When you reach Mecca, beware of going towards Kufa, because that is a very bad place. There your father was killed, and your brother was insulted, and he was even hit with such a blow that almost took his life. Stick to the haram, for you are the Lord of the Arabs, and nobody of the people of Hijaz will ever equate you to anyone else. No one will be considered your equal according to them. And the people will come to you from every corner. Don't leave the haram. May my uncles on both sides of my family be sacrificed for you. Because by God, if you are killed, we will surely be enslaved after you. So let's look at the words of Abdullah bin Muti' for a minute. The first thing that we should notice is he is a supporter of Abdullah bin Zubair. And this is how he greets Hazrat Imam Hussein. He greets him with such respect and such love and such devotion. 3 times he's saying, may I be sacrificed for you. May my family be sacrificed for you. This is the way that the people, the Muslim people, especially those people of the Hijaz, would greet and treat Hazrat Imam Hussein and the rest of the family of Huzur Akram sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He even addresses him as the Lord of the Arabs. This is the stature and the status of Ahlul Bayt that was accorded from the time of the Sahaba and the time of the Tabi'een and to all of the generations that came later. Now let's look at what Abdullah bin Muti actually tells him. He tells him, don't leave the haram, stay there. Because remember, at this point, as we've seen before, Hazrat Abdullah bin Zubair has now become the de facto ruler of Mecca. He's removed the governor that Yazid had in place. He's in control of Mecca. The people are okay with this. It's become a safe haven for anybody of position who wants to avoid aligning themselves with Yazid. And of course, we know this not just through history, but through our personal experience that Makkatul Mukarramah has always been a center, a markaz, a place of gathering for Muslims from all over the world. Wherever the Muslims are, they will always come to Mecca for Hajj or for Umrah. So this is a place where the Muslims of the world would all congregate and meet each other. And Abdullah bin Muti is telling him to stay there so that people might rally to his cause. And the other thing he says is to stay away from Kufa. Because remember, as we saw in the previous episodes, Kufa was the place where Hazrat Ali moved his capital. Kufa was the place where Hazrat Ali was assassinated, where his shahadat took place. And remember, as we've seen before, these are the people who, when things didn't go their way, when Hazrat Imam Hassan made peace with Hazrat Muawiyah, the same people of Kufa began to revile him and curse him and insult him. And, as Abdullah bin Muti tells us in this quotation, they even made an attempt on his life, where he was almost killed there, after which he moves to Medina. So these things are not lost upon the people, these facts, and they're definitely not lost upon Hazrat Imam Hussein. He continues on to Mecca, he reaches Mecca, and the people, as expected, they flock to him. They come to him in large numbers, and even Hazrat Abdullah bin Zubair visits him on the daily and advises him and discusses things with him. So now he's reached his safe haven. He's reached a place where protection is pretty much guaranteed. And he's reached a place where people can actually rally to his cause. He had come to the high ground geographically, politically, and morally. Now, meanwhile, the Kufans they learn of the death of Muawiyah and Hazrat Imam Hussein's refusal to give allegiance to Yazid. They hear this, and so they gather in the house of someone named Suleiman ibn Surad. Now, one thing to remember is that these people, they called themselves the party of Ali, or as we say in Arabic, Shi'anu Ali. They called themselves the Shia of Ali, the party of Ali, the people who supported Ali. These were the people who were gathering in Kufa in the house of Suleiman ibn Surad. So Suleiman ibn Surad addresses the noblemen of Kufa who had gathered in his house, and he asks them what they want to do. They have the situation in front of them, and they know that Hazrat Imam Hussein is now in Mecca. So they ask each other what they want to do, and they all say that we want to fight Yazid, and we want to overthrow the government, and we want to make this our cause. We will lay down our lives if necessary. And so Suleiman ibn Surad says, let's start writing Imam Hussein letters. They begin to write letters and send them out with messengers who were also of noble stock. It's estimated that Hazrat Imam Hussein received hundreds of letters. In some reports, it even says that Hazrat Imam Hussein received 12,000 letters. All of these letters were basically saying the same thing. Let's go over a few of these so that we kind of get a gist of what they were talking about. One letter read as follows. Salamun alayk, fa inna nahmadu ilayka Allah alladhi la ilaha illa hu. Amma ba'd, falhamdulillah alladhi qasama aduwaka al-jabbar al-anid alladhi istanza ala hadhi al-umma wa abtazzaha amraha wa ghasabaha fay'aha wa ta'ammara alayha bighayri ridam minha. ثم قتل خيارها واستبقى شرارها وجعل مال الله دولة بين جبابرتها وأغنيائها فبعد له كما بعدت ثمود إنه ليس علينا إمام فأقبل لعل الله أن يجمعنا بك على الحق. والنعمان بن بشير في قصر الإمارة لسنا نجتمع معه في جمعة ولا نخرج معه إلى عيد ولو بلغنا أنك قد أقبلت إلينا أخرجناه حتى نلحقه بالشام إن شاء الله والسلام ورحمة الله عليك. This was one of the letters that came to Hazrat Imam Hussein. It basically says, we praise Allah other than whom there is no other deity, and we praise Him, the one who destroyed your enemy, the great tyrant who pounced upon this ummah and stole its authority and usurped its fate. Fate is like a type of war booty that is left by the people who leave the war on the other side, and who took command of it without the consent of anyone from that community of the Muslims. Then he killed its good people and allowed its evil people to remain, and he made the wealth of Allah something that circulates between the tyrants and the rich. So Allah removed him just as the Thamud were removed. There is no Imam having authority over us. So come, perhaps Allah will combine us with you upon truth. Nu'man ibn Bashir is in the governor's mansion. We don't gather with him during Jummah, and we don't go out with him for Eid prayers. And if it reaches us that you have started your journey to us, then we will remove him until we take him to Sham, inshallah. Peace and the mercy of Allah upon you. This was one of the letters that was written to Hazrat Imam Hussein. And the reason that we read this letter is because it clearly betrays the Kufans' real intention behind wanting this revolution to happen. Now, remember, as we've discussed before, the Kufans and the Syrians were always fighting with each other as satellites of opposing empires. The Syrians were fighting for the Byzantines, and the Kufans were fighting for the Persians. In the aftermath of the collapse of these two civilizations was when the Islamic State came up. And now, in this new power structure, both sides were struggling to regain or maintain the level of authority that they had had in the past. What happened was that during Muawiyah's Khilafah, the Syrians had gained back that authority, but the Kufans had nothing. And this was their chance. As you can see, from their references to war booty, from their references to authority, from their references to money and wealth, you can see what's really on their minds in this letter. It really betrays their true intentions. And if this letter is clear for the people reading it now in this age, how clear would it have been to Hazrat Imam Hussein? Another letter reads like this: أما بعد فهيهالا فإن الناس ينتظرونك ولا رأي لهم في غيرك فالعجل العجل والسلام عليك. It says, come to us, because the people are waiting for you, and they don't hold any consideration for anyone other than you. So make haste, wassalamu alaik. Another letter read like this: أما بعد فقد اخضر الجناب وأينعت الثمار وطمت الجمام فإذا شئت فاقدم على جند لك مجند والسلام. It says, the land has become green, the fruits have become ripe, and the waters have begun to overflow. So if you want, come to an army that has been prepared for you. Wassalam. Basically saying that all the conditions are perfect, everything is ready for you. Please come at once. So Hazrat Imam Hussein receives these letters. He reads them. He considers the situation. He thinks about this. And he decides to send his cousin, Hazrat Muslim bin Aqil, to Kufa to further assess the situation. He writes back, قَدْ فَهِمْتُ كُلَّ الَّذِي اخْتَصَصْتُمْ وَذَكَرْتُمْ وَمَقَالَةُ جُلَّتِكُمْ إِنَّهُ لَيْسَ عَلَيْنَا إِمَامٌ فَأَقْبِلْ لَعَلَّ اللَّهَ أَنْ يَجْمَعَنَا بِكَ عَلَى الْهُدَى وَالْحَقِّ وَقَدْ بَعَثْتُ إِلَيْكُمْ أَخِي وَابْنَ عَمِّي وَثِقَةِ مِنْ أَهْلِ بَيْتِي وأمرته أن يكتب إلي بحالكم وأمركم ورأيكم فإن كتب إلي أنه قد أجمع رأي ملئكم وذوي الفضل والحجة منكم على مثل ما قدمت علي به رسلكم وقرأت في كتبكم أقدم عليكم وشيكا إن شاء الله فلعمري ما الإمام إلا العامل بالكتاب والآخذ بالقسط وَالدَّائِن بِالْحَقِّ وَالْحَابِسْ نَفْسَهُ عَلَى ذَاتِ اللَّهِ وَالسَّلَامُ. He said, I have understood everything that you have related and mentioned, and the statement of the majority of you is this, that there is no imam holding authority over us. So come, so that Allah will gather us with you upon guidance and truth. I have sent to you my brother, the son of my uncle, and a reliable member of my household, and I have commanded him to write to me of your state, your affair, your mindset, and if he writes back to me that the mindset of the majority of you is what you wrote to me and what I have read in your letters, then I will come to you quickly, inshallah. For by my life, there is no imam except that he is acting on the book of Allah and acting with justice, dealing with truth, and dedicating himself solely for Allah. Wassalam. Now, Hazrat Muslim bin Aqil is sent to Kufa. First, he makes his way to Medina. He hires 2 guides, and then they continue north towards Kufa. Now, these 2 guides, they actually die on the way because the road is so treacherous and there were very few water sources on the way. It gets so bad that Hazrat Muslim even writes to Hazrat Imam Hussein, asking him to relieve him of this duty. But Imam Hussein urges him on. So Hazrat Muslim bin Aqil reaches Kufa, and 12,000 of the inhabitants give allegiance to him. They all say that they will fight alongside him and lay down their lives if need be. And the people of the city are visiting Hazrat Muslim bin Aqil so frequently that the supporters of Yazid in the city also find out. And they complain to the governor, who was, of course, the governor for the Umayyads, Nu'man ibn Bashir. So one day, Nu'man ibn Bashir decides to address this controversy. He ascends the pulpit, the mimbar of the masjid, and says, أما بعد فاتقوا الله عباد الله ولا تسارعوا على الفتنة والفرقة فإن فيهما يهلك الرجال وتسفك الدماء وتغصب الأموال إني لم أقاتل من لم يقاتلني ولا أثب على من لا يثب علي ولا أشاتمكم ولا أتحرش بكم ولا آخذ بالقرف ولا الظنة ولا التهمة ولكنكم إن أبديتم صفحتكم لي ونكثتم بيعتكم وخالفتم إمامكم فوالله الذي لا إله غيره لأضربنكم بسيفي ما ثبت قائمه في يدي ولو لم يكن لي منكم ناصر أما إني أرجو أن يكون من يعرف الحق منكم أكثر ممن يرديه الباطل. Now, Nu'man ibn Bashir is actually a peaceful, peace-loving person, and his speech is saying that fear Allah, O servants of Allah, and don't rush towards strife and disunion, because in these two things, men are destroyed, blood is shed, and property is also taken possession of unlawfully. I will not fight against someone who is not fighting me, nor will I attack someone who has not attacked me. I will not insult you, nor will I instigate you against one another, nor will I act upon hatred, suspicion, or baseless accusation. However, if you choose to break your oaths and rebel against your Imam, then by Allah, the one other than whom there is no deity, I will surely strike you with my sword as long as its hilt remains in my hand, even if I have no one to help me. Listen, I hope that the people who recognize truth amongst you are more than the people who are misled by falsehood. This was the approach that Nu'man ibn Bashir chose to take. However, the supporters of Yazid did not accept this approach. So one supporter, whose name was Abdullah bin Muslim ibn Sa'id Hadrami, he stood up and said, إِنَّهُ لَا يَصْلُحُ مَا تَرَى إِلَّا الْغَشَمْ إِنَّ هَذَا الَّذِي أَنْتَ عَلَيْهِ فِي مَا بَيْنَكَ وَبَيْنَ عَدُوِّكَ رَأْيُ الْمُسْتَضْعِفِينَ. He said, what you see now can only be dealt with using violence. Your position is the position of the weak. And Hazrat Nu'man ibn Bashir replies, أن أكون من المستضعفين في طاعة الله أحب إلي من أن أكون من الأعزين في معصية الله. Great response. He says, I would rather be from among the weak in obedience to Allah than from the strong in disobedience to Allah. This is the best and balanced way to approach things. But of course, the supporters of Yazid did not want to give up their power. This was all about one thing for them, to hold on to the power that they had. So, Abdullah bin Muslim writes a letter to Yazid saying that Muslim is in Kufa, Muslim bin Aqil, and that the people of the city are taking bayat with him in support of Hazrat Imam Hussein. And Yazid actually receives two other letters saying the same thing, one of which was written by someone named Amr ibn Sa'd, a character that we'll revisit in the later episodes. After receiving these letters, Yazid thinks about how to deal with the issue, and he actually calls one of the freed slaves of Hazrat Muawiyah, someone named Sarjun, to help him deliberate the issue. Sarjun persuades him to replace Nu'man ibn Bashir with his cousin, Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad. Now, Yazid and Ibn Ziyad were actually not on good terms. Yazid was angry with him about something, but at that point, Ibn Ziyad was the governor of Basra, and so he replaces Nu'man ibn Bashir and gives Ibn Ziyad command of both Kufa and Basra. And Yazid, along with the letter of appointment, sends Ibn Ziyad the following letter. أما بعد فإنه كتب إلي شيعتي من أهل الكوفة يخبرونني أن ابن عقيل بالكوفة يجمع الجموع لشق عصا المسلمين فالسر حين قرأ كتابي هذا حتى تأتي أهل الكوفة فتطلب ابن عقيل كطلب الحجرة حتى تثقفه فتوثقه أو تقتله أو تنفيه والسلام. He wrote to Ibn Ziyad, my Shia, my party from the people of Kufa have informed me that the son of Aqil is in Kufa and a group is gathering towards him to break the staff of the Muslims, which means to rebel against Muslim authority. So as soon as you read this letter of mine, go to Kufa and search for the son of Aqil just as you would search for a piece of bread until you find him, and then chain him up or kill him or expel him. Wassalam. And look again at this. He ends his letter with the greeting of peace. Very ironic. He's basically telling Ibn Ziyad to kill someone and then wishing him peace at the same time. The remaining part of the story, inshallah, will be covered in the next episode. The fate of Ibn Aqil and his family, inshallah tabaraka wa ta'ala. The subject matter from tonight's episode was pulled from the history of Imam Tabari as well as from the book Sham-e Karbala by Maulana Shafiq Karvi.